Hi friends, welcome to Beautifully Bookish Bethany. Today's video is an insider's guide to NetGalley from the perspective of somebody who is now working in the publishing industry on the other side of those NetGalley approvals or declines. Several years ago, I did a guide to NetGalley that I still stand behind as good advice, but I have more to say now that I have been on the other side of things. And so if you are a book reviewer interested in using NetGalley, you're trying to figure out how to use it, or you're just curious about how it works, stay tuned. I have lots to say. NetGalley is an online platform where you can request digital review copies of books from publishers to review. So this includes ebooks and now audiobooks as well, which you can listen to through their app. When the audiobooks first launched, they weren't great, but they have improved dramatically since they launched them. So I do recommend, if you're an audiobook listener, this can be a really great way to review books. I do a lot of audiobooks on NetGalley. And why NetGalley? Galley is another term for what we in the reviewing world often call an ARC or an ARC, which stands for Advanced Review Copy. That's what a galley is. It is an early copy of a book that has not yet been published. It's not been copy edited yet, so if there are spelling or grammar errors or other minor inconsistencies, that is why you just kind of have to ignore it. It's not the finished version, but it's in order to get early reviews from people who are bloggers, who are content creators, who post reviews on places like Goodreads or Amazon. And one thing to know is you do not have to have public social media to be on NetGalley. There are some caveats to it that can make it a little more complicated for you, but you can be on NetGalley and just review places like Goodreads or Amazon. That is definitely an option, but you need to follow some instructions I'm going to give you if you want to get started on it. So this is what the NetGalley platform looks like. There are two ways that publishers can put books on here. One is for request, where you request it and they either approve or deny your request based on various things. Or some books are read now. When you are first starting out, I highly recommend that you go find a handful of read now titles to download and review in order to get yourself into a position where you're likely to start getting approvals from some of the bigger publishers that you might be interested in. I recommend not going on a requesting spree right away until you have built up some credibility on the platform. And I'm going to get into the reasons why in just a minute. Read now books might be sometimes books from indie authors or smaller publishers. This might be titles that are just less popular. For instance, I'm currently a marketing and publicity intern for Crooked Lane Books and Alcove Press, and all of our cozy mysteries are read now. So if you're a cozy mystery reader, those are an easy way to go. And then occasionally, bigger books will be put as read now, but this is a little unpredictable. They may announce it on their social media. It might be for a limited time or for a limited number of people requesting it, but that is something to keep an eye out for. Now, why do I suggest you start with read now titles? Here's why. On the approval side of NetGalley, the first two pieces of information that a person looking at your request sees are two different percentages. One of those percentages, which is perhaps the obvious one, is what percent of the books that you have had for review have you actually reviewed on the NetGalley platform. So this could be anything from 0% to 100% or something in between. NetGalley generally recommends aiming for an 80% reviewal rate. Different publishers are going to have different thresholds for what they'll approve and what they won't. But in a lot of cases, you probably do want to see that number on the higher end, especially if you are just reviewing on Goodreads or Amazon and you are not a content creator. If you are a content creator and you have a pretty good size following, you might get approved for stuff anyway, even if that percentage is low. Again, depending on the publisher, everybody has their own sort of criteria for how they do this, but you have a better chance of it. But if that's not something that you want to do, I recommend having that percentage on the higher end. The other percentage that they see is what percent of times you've been approved or denied when you have requested a book. So what this means is if you jump into NetGalley and go on a spree of requesting every book that looks interesting to you without having built up any kind of baseline of review percentages on the app, that could end up not working in your favor, because if a bunch of publishers initially decline you, that percentage will also show up to the person choosing whether to approve or deny your request. So just a heads up, it can be really exciting and you can be like, oh my God, I want to read all these books, request, request, request. My recommendation is don't do that right away. Try to grab some of those read now titles and get those reviews in so that you have a decent review percentage before you start requesting some of the bigger books. That's just a recommendation. I know not everybody follows that. I know it can be hard to do, but I do suggest it. Some of my other recommendations have to do with how you fill out your profile, because the person reviewing your request can click into your profile. They can read whatever you've written, they can click whatever links you might have included in your profile. And I do have some best practices and some do's and don'ts to recommend based on some of the things that I have seen many times on NetGalley. So do update your NetGalley profile regularly, at least a few times a year, I would say. If you want to show that you are active on the site, actively reviewing, do include links to your social media, to places where you talk about books, to your blog. A couple of things about this. Number one, make sure that that link is actually going to your active profile and is not just generally going to Instagram.com. I don't know why this is the thing I see a lot of, but there are a lot of people who will say, oh, I post on Instagram, and will just put, oh, Instagram.com. And I'm like, okay, yes, but if there's not an easy link to your profile, I can't go and see that you post on Instagram, right? So make sure it actually links to your profile, not just to the general website, because it's not the most helpful thing otherwise, or TikTok or whatever the case may be. As far as blogs go, we love blogs. However, if the blog that you are linking has not been updated since like 2013, 2020, maybe not the most useful thing, you know? I also lately have been seeing a lot of links to Instagram accounts that have been deleted or have been privated. So if you're going to be linking things, my suggestion is make sure that they are current, things that you are actively using, and that they are public if this is something that you are specifically posting to NetGalley. So some do's and don'ts of things that I have seen. What should you write in your profile? Don't feel like you have to go into a ton of depth. You could sort of briefly give some of your stats on social media if you have them, if there are any particular groups that you belong to that make you really excited about reviewing certain titles, like queer titles, titles by different racial minorities, by disabled authors, etc. You can put that in your profile, but you want to make sure that whatever you're writing in there is actually relevant to why a marketer or a publicist would want to give you early access to read this book. So things like, hey, I love to talk about this specific kind of book to this audience that I have, or I post a lot of reviews on Goodreads of queer books, and a lot of people follow me on Goodreads because that's the thing I like to do. Maybe not things like, I really love reading. I taught my kids how to read. Those things are great, but I think we probably assume that most people on NetGalley love to read, and as lovely as it is to teach your kids or your grandkids how to read, it isn't really relevant to why you should get an early copy of a book. So try to keep it short and sweet, keep it relevant to what you're requesting. And part of the reason I say that is I did not realize before I started being on the other side of this, the sheer volume of requests that publishers get for titles that we're having to process very quickly. I see discourse sometimes over on threads where people will be upset that they didn't get approved for a particular book from various publishers, and maybe be upset because they're like, oh, well, I'm a smaller creator, but maybe that's why I didn't get approved. It shouldn't be like that. Here's what I'm going to say about that. A couple of things. Number one, I am working at an indie publisher, and we will get thousands of requests for different titles that have to get processed very quickly based on whatever criteria our company has decided is the way that we approve or deny things, right? Like, those are not set by the individual. Maybe we have a little wiggle room sometimes, but those are kind of set by the company. But you're processing at the very least hundreds of these requests for different titles very quickly. And that's at an indie house. I know at some of these bigger houses, for some of their biggest titles, they're getting thousands of requests. So just keep in mind that the volume of people requesting these books is probably a lot higher than you might realize, and it's somebody trying to do their best to get through them, and sometimes things get missed. If there is a book that you really, really want to read and you get denied it on NetGalley, my suggestion is to send an email to the publicist, because if you care enough about it to send an email, many times you may get lucky and get it sent to you because they're like, oh wow, this is somebody who like really wants to read this title enough that they went out of their way to email us about it. You may get lucky. No promises. Some publishers are harder to get titles from than others, but if there's a book that you really, really want to read and review, that's my best suggestion, and it will probably work out for you a lot of the time. The other thing I want to say about it though is that if you don't get to read it early, you can read it when it comes out, when it's published, from the library, from a bookstore. There are other places that you can read these books, even if you aren't approved for an early copy, so it doesn't mean that you can never read it. And publishers pay to put their titles on NetGalley, and it's not cheap. So every book that is getting posted there is paid to be there. So whoever they're approving, they want to make sure it makes sense, that it is sort of worth their while to give access to an early copy to. And again, different publishers have different rules about what that threshold needs to be. But if you're feeling like, man, I'm not getting approved for all of these books, and you feel like maybe I have a smaller platform, I've got like only a few hundred followers or something like that, the best things that you can do are focus on getting your percentage of books reviewed that you have gotten accepted from up with Read Now books, with other books. And then if there's a book you're really excited about, try emailing the publicist and see if you can get a widget, which is like a personalized link sent to you where you can then download the book. That's my suggestion. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. What else can we see? We can see your average rating across all of the books that you review. I don't know if that's a criteria that some publishers use. It may be. I couldn't tell you. I know that there are some publishers that are notoriously more difficult to get approvals from. Berkeley is one of them. I feel like if you're not already part of the program where they email you widgets to download, they can be difficult to get approvals from. So also don't take it too personally, because there are some publishers that just like never approve anyone. Disney never approves people. And part of it may be that some of them might be on there mostly for librarians and booksellers. And in that case, it may be that if you're just generally a reviewer, you're not getting approved. So, you know, you'll learn over time which publishers to try with, which not to. Disney almost never approves reviewers. I think it's mostly booksellers and librarians that they're approving on there. So just a heads up about that. It has been really interesting and really enlightening seeing it from the other side. I did not anticipate the volume of requests that we're going through, the fact that they are global, right? So we're getting requests from all over the world on NetGalley. Oh, and with that, I will say one thing is sometimes the publisher will only have the rights to a book in certain countries. And in that case, they will only approve people who request it from the countries they have the rights in. I can think of a couple of examples of things that I'm approving or denying where we only have the rights in like 3 countries, and so only people who live in those countries who request it will have the chance of getting approved. So that can also happen. There's a lot of like weird things with rights in different territories and stuff that can sometimes happen with books. So again, don't take it super personally, but try to get your percentages up with those Read Now titles. Try not to request too many books all at once, and try to make sure your links are current and accurate. If you have any additional questions, feel free to leave them in the comments down below, and I am happy to answer whatever I can. I am not allowed to tell you the specific thresholds for the company I work with, but this is just kind of like general best practices, and it is true that different companies do things differently. If you reach this point in the video, drop a heart emoji in the comments down below. And for your question of the day, I would love to hear, do you review books? Have you ever tried using something like NetGalley? Is it something you've been interested in? I would love to hear your experience with that. Talk to me in the comments down below. If you like this video, it always helps if you give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you want to see more. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.